Imagine dropping into the Antarctic Ocean, where the water sits just below the freezing point. At -1.8 degrees Celsius, the sea is cold enough to burn your skin instantly, only remaining liquid because the high salt content lowers the freezing point of water. As you descend into the dim light of the Southern Ocean, your eyes eventually adjust to a world that feels completely alien. On the seafloor, something moves that your brain initially refuses to accept as real. It is a spider, but not the kind you find in a basement. This creature has legs stretching nearly 70 centimeters across, about 2 feet wide, which is roughly the same diameter as a large bicycle wheel. This is Colossendes, the Antarctic sea spider, a giant that has haunted the notebooks of marine biologists for over a century. For more than 150 years, this creature represented a biological impossibility because it violated every rule we understood about how animals breathe and grow. In tropical waters, sea spiders are tiny, often no larger than your fingernail, which is about the size of a small coin. Yet here, in the most extreme cold on Earth, they grow into monsters. This contrast created a massive scientific mystery that defied explanation until very recently. Nothing about the size of these giants made sense according to traditional physics, but now, multiple lines of evidence from modern research have finally solved this mystery, replacing vague wonder with a definitive mechanical understanding. Scientists first noticed this pattern of extreme size in the mid-1800s, when early Antarctic expeditions brought specimens back to the museums of London and Paris. Biologists were baffled because bigger bodies usually create bigger survival problems. Specifically, they create a crisis of oxygen. These sea spiders are primitive organisms that have no lungs, no gills, and no complex blood systems to pump oxygen around their bodies. Instead, they rely on a process called passive diffusion, where oxygen enters straight through their skin from the surrounding water. Physics dictates that this should strictly limit how large an animal can get. If an organism gets too big, the oxygen cannot travel far enough into the center of the body to keep the inner cells alive. It is like trying to water a massive garden with a single tiny sprinkler in the middle. The edges will always stay dry. Based on this rule, these spiders should have suffocated long before reaching the size of a dinner plate. This violation of normal biology suggested that either our understanding of physics was wrong, or there was a hidden mechanism at work in the polar seas that removed the normal constraints on life. For decades, researchers could only guess at the answer, but the lack of a clear mechanism created a sense of chaotic unpredictability in marine science that has only recently been resolved. The investigation into this mystery required a systematic approach, moving from simple observations to high-tech laboratory testing. To solve the puzzle, marine biologists from institutions like the British Antarctic Survey and the University of Hawaii had to look beyond the animal itself and analyze the environment. They began by collecting specimens from the freezing depths using remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, which are tethered underwater robots equipped with cameras and mechanical arms. These machines allow scientists to study creatures in their natural habitat without the risk of human diving in such lethal conditions. Researchers measured the water chemistry at the exact spots where the giants were found. They discovered that the Antarctic water was not just cold, it was hyperoxygenated. Because of the way gas behaves in liquids, cold water holds exponentially more dissolved oxygen than warm water. In the tropics, the water might hold 8 milligrams of oxygen per liter, but in the Antarctic, that number jumps to 14 milligrams per liter. This is nearly double the oxygen available for cellular respiration, which is the process cells use to turn nutrients into energy. This measurement provided the first piece of the puzzle, suggesting that the environment itself was providing a massive surplus of the one resource that usually limits body size. The second piece of evidence came from studying the metabolism of these creatures. Metabolism is the speed at which an organism's body burns energy to stay alive. In the extreme cold, chemical reactions slow down significantly. Biologists used specialized metabolic chambers, which are sealed containers that measure exactly how much oxygen an animal consumes over time, to test the sea spiders. They found that the metabolic rate of these polar giants is 80% slower than that of their tropical cousins. This means they burn energy at 1/5 the normal speed. When you combine high oxygen availability with incredibly slow internal engine, the math of survival changes completely. Because the spider's cells are working so slowly, they don't need oxygen to arrive quickly. The surplus oxygen in the water can drift slowly through the skin and reach every part of the body before the cells run out of fuel. This definitive research, published in journals like Proceedings of the Royal Society B, proved that the size limit was not a hard wall, but a sliding scale controlled by temperature and oxygen density. However, even with these findings, one major question remained. How does the oxygen actually get through the thick outer shell of the spider? This shell, known as the cuticle, is usually a solid barrier. If you look at a sea spider under a powerful electron microscope, which uses beams of electrons to see details much smaller than a standard microscope can, you see the smoking gun of this adaptation. The cuticle of the Antarctic sea spider is not solid. It is riddled with microscopic holes called pores. These pores make the spider's skin act like a piece of Swiss cheese, allowing the oxygen-rich water to come into almost direct contact with the internal tissues. This is a specific biochemical adaptation that is absent in smaller, warm water species. Scientists verified this by measuring the pore density, or the number of holes per square millimeter, and found that the giants have significantly more openings to facilitate gas exchange. This structural evidence turned the mystery into a settled case. The spider isn't just lucky, it is a precision-engineered machine designed to exploit the unique physics of the cold. Understanding this mechanism allows us to see the deep ocean not as a place of random chaos, but as a system governed by predictable rules. This pattern of gigantism isn't unique to spiders. It repeats across the entire polar ecosystem. You see it in giant amphipods, which are shrimp-like creatures that grow to the size of a football in the deep sea, and in the colossal squid, which can reach 14 meters in length, roughly the size of a school bus. These animals all follow the same rule. Cold water provides the oxygen, and slow metabolism provides the time. This is known as the oxygen temperature hypothesis, and it has now been confirmed through multiple independent studies. By organizing these extreme animals into a systematic taxonomy of adaptations, we can map out exactly how life handles different stresses. Thermophiles survive heat through specialized proteins, while these psychrophiles, or cold-loving organisms, survive through oxygen-driven growth. The mystery of why the Antarctic creates giants is no longer a matter of speculation. It is a fully decoded biological pathway that we can predict and measure with mathematical certainty. The evolutionary history of these creatures adds another layer of clarity to the pattern. These spiders did not become giants overnight. This adaptation evolved over millions of years, likely beginning around 30 million years ago, when the Antarctic continent became isolated by the circumpolar current. This current is a massive, spinning loop of water that blocked warmer currents from reaching the South Pole, causing the temperatures to plummet. As the water cooled, the oxygen levels rose, and the organisms that could slow their metabolism and increase their skin permeability had a massive advantage. They could grow larger than their predators, store more energy, and move more efficiently. Larger bodies are better at retaining what little heat they have and can travel further to find food in a desert-like environment. This was not a random stroke of luck, but a systematic response to a changing planet. The fossil record and DNA sequencing have allowed researchers to trace this lineage, showing how the spiders slowly transitioned from small generalist forms to the specialized giants we see today. We are witnessing the end result of a long, logical process where every change was tested by natural selection. One of the most fascinating aspects of sea spider biology is where they keep their internal organs, because their bodies are so thin to allow for better oxygen diffusion. There isn't enough room inside the main torso for everything an animal needs. To solve this, the spiders have moved their digestive systems and even their reproductive organs into their legs. Their guts literally branch out into their limbs, and they pump food through their bodies using the muscles in their legs as they walk. This is an elegant solution to the space constraints of a body designed for maximum surface area. It shows that even when an animal seems to violate the basic layout of life, there is a functional, mechanical reason for the change. By spreading their organs out, they maintain a thin profile that maximizes the diffusion surface, ensuring that no cell is ever too far from the oxygen-rich water. Every part of their anatomy is tuned to this one goal: capturing as much oxygen as possible while spending as little energy as possible. Despite their fearsome appearance, these giants move in what looks like slow motion. Their movements are a direct result of the cold water, which makes the water itself more viscous, or thicker and harder to move through. It is like trying to swim through honey. Because their metabolism is so slow, they don't have the fast twitch muscle fibers that land animals use for quick bursts of speed. Instead, they crawl with a steady, rhythmic pace, moving across the seafloor like a slow-motion clock. This slow pace is actually an advantage. If they moved faster, they would burn through their oxygen faster than the skin could replenish it. By living life in the slow lane, they stay within the safety margins of their biological design. This realization that their speed is a feature, not a bug, further reinforces the idea that the deep sea is a balanced system, where every limitation is balanced by an adaptation. The chaos of the deep is actually a highly ordered environment where the rules of physics are followed to the letter. To see how fragile this balance is, we only need to look at what happens when the temperature changes. This is where the near-miss moments of biology become visible. If the Antarctic water were to warm by just 5 degrees Celsius, the oxygen levels would drop significantly, while the spider's metabolism would speed up. The animal would suddenly need more oxygen at the exact moment that less was available. Under these conditions, the giants would suffocate within days. They are locked into their extreme environment by their own success. This is a powerful lesson about limits. A system that is perfectly tuned for one extreme is often the most vulnerable to change. The sea spiders are masterpieces of cold adaptation, but they have no margin for error. Scientists have closed this case not just to understand the past, but to predict the future. Under projected ocean warming, these giants face a high risk of regional extinction by the next century because their specialized mechanism cannot handle the loss of oxygen density. The definitive proof of this oxygen-size link came from a series of smoking gun experiments where researchers raised sea spiders in water with varying oxygen levels. They found that even in cold water, if you artificially lower the oxygen, the spiders cannot maintain their size and eventually die. Conversely, if you raise the oxygen levels in slightly warmer water, they can survive at larger sizes than they normally would. The math is irrefutable. Oxygen is the master controller. This discovery, supported by institutions like the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution and the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, has settled the debate that lasted for over a century. We no longer have to wonder why the polar seas produce giants while the tropics produce miniatures. The evidence proves beyond any doubt that temperature-driven oxygen availability creates polar gigantism through this specific biochemical and structural pathway. For the modern viewer, this clarity is grounding. The world can feel overwhelming because the causes of change are often hidden behind layers of social and economic complexity. But in the deep ocean, the rules are visible and absolute. When you pull back the layers of a giant sea spider, you don't find a monster. You find a logical response to the laws of thermodynamics and gas solubility. The universe isn't acting randomly. Even the most bizarre and impossible creatures follow a blueprint that we can understand through systematic research. Life's ability to thrive under the crushing pressure of the deep, where the weight of the water is like having an elephant standing on every square inch of your body, shows that there is no environment so hostile that a logical solution cannot be found. This pressure, which equals about 100 atmospheres at the depths where many sea spiders live, would compress the air in human lungs into the density of a liquid, yet the spiders handle it easily because they have no air-filled spaces. Their bodies are primarily solid and liquid, which are incompressible. As we map out these mechanisms, we gain a sense of intellectual mastery over the natural world. We can categorize the giant sea spider not as a mystery, but as a barophilic psychrophile, an organism that loves both pressure and cold. We can explain its breathing through cuticular porosity and its size through metabolic scaling. This terminology isn't just jargon, it is a set of keys that unlock the patterns of the planet. When we see the same rules of oxygen and metabolism applying to the colossal squid or the giant isopods of the deep trenches, we realize that we have found a fundamental law of biology. This is the goal of science, to take the seemingly impossible and make it inevitable. The question of how these giants exist has been answered. The mystery is solved. We have the complete biochemical pathway mapped, from the freezing surface water down to the microscopic pores in a spider's leg. The journey from a confusing observation in 1850 to a definitive mechanical explanation in the 2020s is a testament to the power of the scientific method. It shows that with enough time, data, and rigorous testing, even the most chaotic parts of our world can be understood. For an audience facing an uncertain future, this is a powerful reminder that apparent chaos often hides a deeper order. If life can find a systematic, understandable way to grow 2-foot-wide spiders in freezing darkness, then perhaps the other complex problems we face also have logical solutions waiting to be discovered. The giant sea spider is a symbol of that possibility. It is a creature that should not exist according to the old rules, but which thrives according to the new ones. In the end, the story of Colossendes is a story of scientific closure. We have moved from "we think" to "now we know." The evidence chain is unbroken, from the environmental sensors to the metabolic chambers and the genetic sequences. The biological impossibility has been replaced by a scientific explanation that is as solid as the seafloor itself. Knowing exactly how and why this happens doesn't make the sight of a 2-foot spider any less breathtaking, but it does replace fear of the unknown with the satisfaction of understanding. The rules of the deep ocean are no longer a secret. We have decoded the mechanism of the polar giants, and in doing so, we have made the world a little less mysterious and a lot more understandable. What seemed like a violation of nature was actually nature following its most basic rules to a spectacular, giant conclusion. This completes our understanding of one of the most extreme adaptations on Earth, proving that even in the most unpredictable environments, the laws of physics and biology remain constant and discoverable.